everyone. So I left you with a few things for this week with our article and our discussion, the YouTube video that I left you, as well as the last few slides of the PowerPoint that are all basically going into this same thing. That idea that I was trying to reinforce in class of intelligence means something different to all of us, to every one of us. Hopefully you can really see that, because I want you to take some time before actually writing up your discussion post to think about that. To think about the differences that you see in the article, the last few slides of the PowerPoint, and the video that I left you of just looking at some just basic differences of a character where some might consider Sheldon to be incredibly intelligent and others might find places where he's lacking, certainly in things like street smarts or common sense. I want you to think about what that means for you. Because like the article is going into in the last few PowerPoint slides, we're not saying that there's a difference based off of intelligence. It's just that some people define their intelligence differently than others. And some of those definitions are better represented on an IQ test. Whereas some may value elements of intelligence that are still very much intelligence, but they're not the parts that are represented on that IQ test. I wanted to close this idea by sharing a personal example of my own journey with my own intelligence. And I think this is a story that, at least I hope, will benefit some of you to hear. Because at least if there's one story that I do share in the class, I think this is the one that is the most important to me to share. So if you'll indulge me for a few minutes. I have to explain a little bit of background for this to all make sense. So growing up, depending on your definition of it, I was either the very top end of lower class or the bottom end of middle class. I was right on that border. When I grew up, when I was in high school, I had to work to help support things for the house for my family. And I remember a lot of times while my father was away for a weekend just keeping busy with work, I would end up having to take on extra responsibilities of helping to take care of my brother. I would be working at a pizza place. I would have to bring home dinner for him. He was old enough that I didn't have to be watching him 24/7, but I was still helping to take care of things, helping to do things that just were needed for my family. Now, one of the important parts of that is the transition to college. Because I went to Drew University, and some of you are very familiar with Drew University because you're from right around the corner. The thing about Drew, and Drew is a wonderful, wonderful institution. It's a beautiful campus. It's one that everyone should walk on at some point in their life. But when it comes to Drew, I make no illusion that I got admitted to Drew because of my grades, because of my SAT scores and things like that. I got into Drew because of all of my extras of my background. I wrote I think at least, a very meaningful personal essay, and I had a lot of extra things of overcoming adversity that really impacted me getting in there. I was very active with some extracurriculars and keeping busy where I can, mostly, to be honest, mostly because I just didn't want to be in the house more than I had to be, because I did have all those extra responsibilities. Drew is a great academic institution, but I make no illusion that I got in there solely for my academics. So hopefully that will set the tone a little bit for what I'm about to say, because once I went to Drew, and the way that this works is you go for freshman orientation before the rest of the students are there. It's the freshmen. And the day that we were supposed to move in was my last day of work. I needed the extra money to just be able to survive, so I couldn't really skip that shift. So I ended up moving in at basically 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, the morning that everything was supposed to start. And now that starts this journey, because the first thing I remember pulling in onto campus is the cars that I was driving by on the parking lot. Now, if you're familiar with Drew, as you pull into campus, you immediately get to a prime student parking lot. You go past, there's a lot on the right that was pretty empty, but then you get to this prime parking space. Now that lot's full because there's enough upperclassmen that are helping out with orientation. So before I got to my dorm, I see this prime parking lot, and I'm already intimidated because the cars are BMWs, Lexuses, Mercedes, and I'm sitting there driving a Geo Metro, and I can't express this enough. If you picture a ladybug, that was my car. Not the Beetle. I'm saying an actual ladybug. It was red. If you put some black spots on the top of it, it would have looked exactly like a ladybug. It was not exactly a luxury sedan. And I remember looking, feeling like, what? Why are there all these beautiful cars? And I was already feeling a little intimidated. I pulled to my dormitory. I had just enough time to unload everything into the room. I didn't get a chance to unpack. I just brought everything from my car, put my car in the backside lot. Nothing prime parking or anything like that, just the corner lot, because technically I wasn't supposed to have my car on campus. I just had special permission because of my situation for the day to have it on there. And I rushed right over to the first thing for orientation. Now, here's where an important thing I need to mention happens. I, to this day, don't think that I did something different than some of you in this room might have considered doing in this situation, where we were supposed to read this book. And it was a book I didn't have interest in. We were supposed to read this book so that we can have a college-level discussion off of the topic. Now, I didn't have interest in it. It wasn't graded. It was just for orientation. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I read the cliff notes of it, went into there thinking I was going to be surrounded by a lot of my classmates who did the same. And boy, was I wrong. You see, everyone in this group did read the book. And I had the extra privilege of having the chair of the English department leading this discussion for my small group. We were all in small groups of about a dozen. And I had not the easiest one, I'm sure, to be led, since it was the chair of the department, the head of the department. But I can also tell you, it didn't matter if I read this book or not ahead of time. I would never have been able to talk about it the way that the rest of this group was. They were talking about things, specifically, if you're familiar with them, ethos, logos, and pathos. Things that I didn't learn in high school. At least I didn't remember, I didn't retain it. I was listening to these terms and like, why are we talking about the Three Musketeers? I thought we were supposed to read. I don't even remember the book, to be honest, that we were supposed to read for it. And yeah, I was very much out of my element there. But everyone in that group read it and was talking about it in a way that I never could comprehend. I never would have been able to do that. I left that discussion thinking I made the biggest mistake of my life. What am I doing? I'm not smart enough to be here. The rest of the morning was all about academic success in college. So a few more of similar things. And they did not get better. And I remember as the morning ended and I was walking back to my dormitory and then going to go get some lunch, I remember calling my mother. And my mom, the rock that she was, she said all the right things to me. But I remember distinctly being in tears, ready to give up, thinking I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't even unpack, so I was ready to just grab things, put them back in the car, and head on home. My mom said all the right things. It's just a few bad experiences. It's a bad morning. You're going to be okay. This isn't what you should be judging it on. Give it a little time. You haven't even met everyone. Well, to be honest, she was right. Once the afternoon went on, it was more about success living on campus, success living away from home and making friends and things like that. And that is something that I am capable of doing. I fit in more or less for the afternoon things. But the academics, oh, very much no. Now, I still remember how close I was, and I was, after the afternoon, still ready to give up. I really thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. And the moment that changed that comes in the early evening. Well, into the evening, I should say. And it's something that I think really highlights what we're talking about today in the discussion of how there's more to intelligence than just book smarts or specific subjects of smarts and things like that. Because the moment that made me change my outlook doesn't have to do with the book smarts. It has to do with a different type of intelligence. Now, after the afternoon, it's completely campus life things. There's some things that you're doing with your floor residence life. The one thing we were going to all do is all go as a floor together to the dining hall, and then there was going to be some things afterwards. And me and a small group of the people that were going to live on my floor decided we had a better idea. We decided that, no, we need to do our own bonding. So we decided to skip dinner, hang out in one of their rooms, and just do our own bonding. This is my PG way of saying that we decided to get drunk together. Well, what happens when you're drinking a little bit, not eating dinner, skipping dinner, you start to get really hungry. And when I say this, I always laugh a little bit inside because I know from the reactions that I get from my classes when I explain this, that people at the beginning don't actually really want to believe this, but I can't stress enough, this is 100% true. We decided we were going to order a pizza. Now, we're in a town that we don't know. And I have to date myself a little bit of saying, this is not when your local pizza places are on the internet. Our search browsers, our search engines were Yahoo and Dogpile when I went to college. So we wanted to order pizza and no one could figure out what they wanted to order. And that's not an exaggeration. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Not what they wanted to order. No one could figure out how to order, how to find the number of the local pizza place. And I'm not exaggerating this. They did not know what they needed to do to find the number for our local pizza place. They would have starved. That's not me exaggerating. This is 100% true. They would have starved that night, if not for me. Now, I was as intimidated, and every one of them in this room, and there's 10 of us in this room, every one of them in this room was my academic superior. I make no allusion to this. They all had higher SAT scores, GPAs than me. They were better fit for academic success at Drew. But they came from different backgrounds than me. Drew was a little bit wealthier of a college, at least from the peers that were there at this time. One of them had a live-in butler. I called him the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for 4 years of college. The bottom line is they came from a different background. They didn't have to worry about ordering a pizza because they had someone to do it for them or to cook them a home dinner. I didn't have those things. If I didn't know how to order a pizza, order out, cook myself food, I would have starved. It was just my background. That's what I came from. I end up saving the day by just saying, well, maybe we should go and get the yellow pages. And they were all confused. Where would that be? Maybe we should check the lounge on the floor if there's some yellow pages there. Sure enough, right over the refrigerator, there's a yellow pages book. So we find the pizza place that's local because we don't know the area. We have no idea what pizza places are good or not. We just found the local one, ordered delivery. Trust me, Drew, you probably need to know how to order delivery because the food, unless it's improved, wasn't the best either. This moment means everything to me because this is the singular reason that I am before you today. My entire academic journey it starts right there. It starts at I wasn't smart enough to fit in. I wasn't smart enough to survive. But you know what the truth is from this moment, from a moment of just being able to problem solve, figure out how to order dinner. For a group of people that weren't able to do that, it changed everything. It changed my outlook because now, instead of looking at them that they were my academic superiors, looking at them like, wow, you guys are so smart, I looked at them and I thought they were all idiots. How could you not be able to do this? This is so basic. But it was basic for me, not for them. They came from a different background. That's why some of them maybe were on higher levels academically. Maybe some of them had private tutoring, had special classes and things like that. Things that I might not have had. So what did I do from there? Well, I started to feel confident in myself. And I worked. I'm not going to say it magically came. I worked my tail off. And I caught up to them academically. By the time I graduated, they weren't my superiors. They were my equals. And the opposite's true for them. Every one of them learned how to order a pizza because you wouldn't have survived at Drew otherwise. We all have to be learning every day of our life. Learning is lifelong. And we're working towards improving our intelligence constantly. That was my journey. Now, by the end of that, I graduated from college, was able to go get an advanced degree and become a professor sitting before you, I guess because I'm sitting before you today. I never thought that was possible the first day of college. And I like sharing that story simply because I think that's something a lot of you might be able to empathize with and picture because a lot of us do feel intimidated from time to time. I'm going to have to pause this and I'm going to put the last little bit, the last 2 minutes in its own video. So give me 1 second.